This is Rainmaker FM, the digital marketing podcast network. It's built on the Rainmaker platform, which empowers you to build your own digital marketing and sales platform. Start your free 14-day trial at rainmakerplatform.com.
So Andy Sprinkler has a brother. His name is Andrew Bullock. And do you know what a bullock is?
No.
It's a castrated bull.
And welcome back to The Lead, a podcast about content marketing by Rainmaker Digital. I am your host, Jared Morris, VP of Rainmaker FM for Rainmaker Digital, and I'm joined for the second week in a row, we did 2 in a row, by Damian Farnworth, Chief Content Writer over at the Copyblogger blog for Rainmaker Digital. Damian, how are you this week?
I'm doing great, Jared. This has been just a fantastic week to be alive, and I'm glad that I have not died.
Well, that is true. I also am glad that you have not died, because then I would have to record this by myself, and that would be no fun.
The memorial service for me, right?
Yeah, that would not be good. So this is the second part of a 4-part series that we're doing, Damian. And the series is on the essential elements of a remarkable audience experience. And if anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, you can go back and listen to the last week's episode where we introduced the series and we talk about authenticity. And you can also go to showrunner.fm, and if you subscribe to that list, you'll get a content series that outlines these essential elements of a remarkable audience experience within the context of podcasting. But I wanted to bring it here to The Lead, Damian, because I want to talk with you about these and get your insight on them. And let's see if there are any differences between how we explain them from a podcast perspective and how we explain them from a writing perspective. My guess is, that there will be, there won't be, but it's always just interesting to get your perspective on these issues. And so today we're going to talk about usefulness. And usefulness is really about respecting the investment of time that your audience is making in your content and making sure that they walk away from it with something valuable, with something useful. And it's also about having the understanding of why your audience is coming to you in the first place. Because if you don't understand that, then you may well be mismatching what you're delivering to them. And so typically when I talk about usefulness, I talk about educating, entertaining, or inspiring, right? You've got to do at least one of those 3 things, or why are you even creating the content in the first place? And if you can do all 3 of them, obviously in one piece, that's the holy grail. That's great. But it's really important to understand why people are coming to you. Like, for instance, with The Lead, people come to this show to learn about content marketing. Now, if we can say some funny joke, or we have the cold opening that we pull is funny or whatever, or we share a story that's inspiring, that's all well and good. But if people aren't actually learning something that can help them improve their content marketing, then the entertainment, the inspiration, none of that stuff matters. They're not going to be listening to our show. And that's why it's very important that we understand that, so that we can make sure that every episode, come hell or high water, even if it's not entertaining or inspiring, it's got to be educational on the topic that the people are coming for. And so that's the big idea here with usefulness, is respecting that your audience is investing their time in your content and making sure that they get what they're coming for. What else would you add to this basic overview of usefulness?
Well, I would say that usefulness is basically the bread and butter of search engines, and why you're writing content in the first place. Because when people come to search engines are essentially question machines, question answering machines. Because people go there, what do they write? How to install a faucet, where do I find the best veterinarian? Those sort of questions. And so you've got to write content, and for the first and foremost, if your livelihood is bent upon a business that's online, it's answering those sort of what we call cornerstone content questions, because those are the top questions that they have. It's like, what's his name? Is it Marcus Sheridan? That's kind of the go-to person when he talk about this, and he built his swimming pool, business, just doing that, just answering customers' questions. And a lot of people thought he was insane for doing that, because then you're empowering them to do it. But that's just not true. It's not what happens. And there's a small segment of people who go looking for answers so they can do it themselves. But for the most part, people ask those questions and then say, okay, well, you're the expert. Why don't you do it? And ultimately, that's what ends up happening. So, first and foremost, useful content is just answering a question, and it's providing some sort of, I think back to like Google's Move. This includes like Google's Move when they did what was that was it Google Insights or the in-depth articles? That's what it was. When they rolled out the in-depth articles, because they found that like about 10% of people wanted more on a particular topic than rather than surface level sort of answering it. So they started including those towards the bottom if they were available, and there was like 3 choices that you normally had. But again, that was useful. People wanted to know more. They wanted to know more, something more current than just Wikipedia. And so that's useful. So it's not just in that sense of like fixing things or finding things, but it's also like, so what is ISIS? And what is going on? With the Democratic presidential nomination. Those sort of things are useful too, and like you talked about. And I think too about entertainment. And so I always find like those pieces of content. Like Airbnb did a thing. Was it called Ball and Chain? About
do you
remember that?
I remember, yeah.
So that was entertainment. It wasn't very. I don't remember. If you remember correctly, I don't think it was very useful. I mean, it's not like you could watch that and say, "Oh, this is how I rent out my basement on Airbnb." It's just a story about sort of how Airbnb was able to reunite these two people who were worlds apart at some point. So, but it's entertainment and it's content. It's like, okay, that in that sense, you get mind share with that people.
And in that case, it was useful because it was entertaining, right? Because entertainment is one of the elements of usefulness. Now, where the mismatch is you don't necessarily go to Airbnb for entertainment like you go to Netflix, right? You go to Airbnb to either rent out your place or find a place to rent. And that's where you do want to have that match between the audience expectations, but it doesn't mean that every now and then you can't do something kind of out of the ordinary, right? It's like on The Lead. We did a couple of different episodes about, like I did an episode talking about lessons that I'd learned from you. And that actually, was educational, but there were also, it was kind of more lighthearted. In a sense, it was kind of more on the entertainment side, kind of opening it up, letting people get to kind of learn about us a little bit. And so you can every now and then go outside of that core for what your audience is coming for. You just don't want to do it too often. I mean, if all Airbnb did was have these little kind of short film movies, that'd be great, but they've still got to be delivering the goods when it comes to their core business.
Kind of on the same thread is, the Dos Equis, the world's most interesting man.
I love those commercials.
Right, and great commercials, and very entertaining, very funny, viral as all get out. The question is like, did they increase sales? Well, the truth is they did. I mean, like they more than doubled sales from over like a 4 or 5 year period. So and clearly, it worked in the sense of bringing more mind share to people of this product that's out there with a really good, it's the beer. I've never drank Dos Equis, but I can guarantee it probably tastes a lot like Corona or just any kind of really light, quote unquote, Mexican beer. However, there's a certain stereotype, a good one in the sense that's tagged when you drink Dos Equis. You suddenly become the most interesting man in the world. But I think all alcohol does that to men in the first place. However, that makes us think we're legends of our own minds, right?
Yes.
But it was entertaining, but it worked. It raised sales.
Yeah, and in that case, I don't think we're looking to a beer commercial for anything other than entertainment. We're not looking to be educated or inspired. Sure. So there's a definite match there between the audience expectations and those 30 seconds that we're investing watching that Dos Equis commercial. We're being entertained by it, with their clever wordplay and just everything else that they do there. Now, you mentioned earlier Marcus Sheridan. It's interesting you mentioned him because I was thinking about, just his general example about basically going out and answering your customers' questions. And it happened to me just the other week because Heather and we're getting ready to put in an underground like automatic irrigation system, a drip irrigation system, because the soil here in Texas, it's like this clay that is just it moves a lot, and so you have all these foundation issues, and so you have to keep the ground underneath your house watered or at a consistent moisture level, basically, so that it doesn't move all the time. And so and a lot of times you can't get that level just from a sprinkler, so you have to install this kind of more sophisticated underground irrigation. And I don't know anything about this. I mean, whatever. I barely know the terms. And so I was, doing some research, trying to get some estimates, and I got an estimate from this one company, but I decided to go out and do some more research. And so I started asking questions like, how much should drip irrigation cost? What do I need to look for in drip irrigation? And I kept coming up on the same company, this Andy Sprinkler. And they basically were following the Marcus Sheridan model of they were putting out
Sprinkler?
Yeah, Andy Sprinkler. So
Is that his name?
I guess the guy who started, his name is Andy.
And it's irrigation?
Yeah, it's irrigation and lighting actually, which is an interesting.
But his last name is Sprinkler?
Well, no. No, that's like what they're Andy Sprinkler. Like they do sprinkler.
Andy's Sprinkler. So it's possessive.
Yes.
It's just saying,
Yeah, there's an apostrophe
that's really
there.
cute. Yeah, it's sort of like destiny for him. I guess I'm going to do the sprinkler business.
Yeah, I guess that is true. So yeah,
Sorry, I interrupted you.
That's funny. So I kept coming up on his site, right? And they were, these relatively short articles, but they answered the questions. And of course, I'm a sucker. Like whenever I see someone doing content marketing real well, like I'm going to use them for a service. But it also turns out that I went on Angie's List and looked, and they're really highly rated. They have great reviews and everything. But that again, and the reason I bring this up is because those articles were not entertaining, and they were they weren't inspiring. It's not like I felt inspired after learning about drip irrigation, but they did exactly what I was looking for. I was looking for education. They got right to the point. I think a sprinkler blog knows that people aren't going there, to spend a whole lot of time and have fun. You're going there for a very specific answer. I think on a copy blogger post, we have a little bit more leeway, maybe to tell a story or two, kind of entertain people. But there's still got to be education there, because that's why people go to the Copy Blogger blog, is to learn and get better at content marketing. But I thought that this was a great example of, just getting right to the point, paying off the investment of my time with the answer that I need, and then it's coming back around to them, because I had the guy out the other day, and we're going to use them for this drip irrigation installation. And it was a perfect example of that idea of just be useful in the way that people need you to be useful. And to do that, of course, you've got to understand how people want you to be useful and just deliver them what they need.
All right, so here's a great example of someone who's using content, email, newsletter, and in fact, who's very entertaining, but he's also very useful. So,
yes.
All right, so his name is John Rimmerman, and he's a wine merchant. So he goes out, he buys wine, and then he sells the wine through his email newsletter. And he's somewhat of a cult classic in a sense, and he moves some pretty extraordinary, expensive wine bottles by the cases, mind you, and he does it. And his emails are sort of works in someone who is very enthusiastic about what he does. Tells great stories, because he almost opens every time he gets sort of a shipment, or buys several, I don't know how many he buys, several 100 cases of this particular wine. He tells the story of meeting the winery, of like the intrigue, the conflict that occurs, and like it's entertaining, because you're also learning about the wine merchant business. You're also learning about how to make wine, but ultimately, he's the move, and he always closes them with a call to action, like if you want to get your hands on a case or two of this this mysterious or unique wine, you need to order right now. And because it's like there's scarcity there's this mystique and intrigue, and he's selling things with stories. The other thing is too, so here's my other favorite example about telling stories, being entertaining but at the same time being useful. It's like there was a project, and it's still going on. It's called significantobjects.com, and you go there. Two writers had this idea about taking worthless items like a 99-cent hammer they bought at a garage sale, then selling on eBay, but not just selling it, but they put a story behind it. They asked a writer, a novelist or whatever, say, hey, can you write a story about this hammer? And it's a completely fictional story, but they would turn around and sell that hammer for like $56 because of that story. It was absolutely amazing, with this idea that you can, good stories like that do elevate worthless items, basically. That's the moral of the story of that particular thing. But John Rimmerman, and his as a wine merchant, he's moving cases of wine by telling stories.
That's
and
interesting.
being very useful.
Well, see, and that fits with wine because to me, like I think, like when I buy wine, like the story of the wine is important. You know, where it's from, kind of what the label is, like you know how old it is, all those different things. I mean, Heather always laughs because every time we're at Central Market or whatever, and they're doing one of those wine tastings, all the person has to do is basically tell me the story about the wine, and I'm going to buy it. Because like there's just
she's like they're lying to you, Jared.
yeah. She's like, this is the same as that stuff. You can't tell the difference in taste. And I'm like, but I enjoy the experience of it more, So I think with something like wine,
but it's all in your head, right? I mean, I totally understand where you're coming from, but it really, if you think about it, there's like, it's the same reason why people pay several tens of $1,000s for a baseball from, a famous baseball player and stuff or whatever, sports memorabilia.
Yeah. Boy, it's funny. I was actually just this past weekend, I was going through my old card collection, like football cards and baseball cards and basketball cards.
You still have them?
Oh yeah, I do. Cause we have all this construction at the house. We're moving all this stuff around. I got this giant tub and just started going through it. And I forgot about just all the different, cards that we're like going through and, typing in the card and seeing how much they're worth. And of course they're worth a fraction of what they were worth back when I bought them. But yeah, it's the same thing, but then there's like this little set of Indiana basketball cards that if you typed it in to look up how much it would be worth like 5 cents. But when I found them, I was so excited that I found them because they have such sentimental value to me and the story that I can tell about them. And I got Heather excited about them, just telling her the story about
really
how I came upon these and how much they meant. And anyway, so and I think the point here is that like I think with wine.
You're a hoarder?
Yeah, that really is the point. I think with wine, which can be an experienced product, that, being entertaining while you're being educational can be great. And there can be some added usefulness there. I'm not sure, even if Jay Peterman himself wrote, descriptions of the drip irrigation, I don't think it would really make a difference. No, maybe not. But, I think that's a great example of, just understanding what you need to be doing.
Some things just need like cold hard facts.
Right. Exactly. Right. Exactly. So, and let's think here. So, we really want to recommend other shows on Rainmaker FM because we have so many great shows and we want to make sure that people are aware of all these different shows. What do you think is a great example of usefulness on Rainmaker FM? Because I have a few in mind. I'm curious what you think.
I would have to say two of my favorite. One would be the Mainframe because, and the other one is Search and Destroy, which is about SEO. The Mainframe is about just sort of digital commerce, but kind of from I almost want to say a technical side.
Yeah.
You can't beat that show because I'm not strong in either of those. So it's like what I want to bone up on. Why everyone should have a membership site or. I know I can look and past some of their past shows. Besides, Chris has a British accent, so it's always fun to listen to someone with a British accent.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that show, because I agree on the Mainframe, and we talked in our last episode about authenticity, and I think what Chris and Tony do with that show is a great example of authenticity and usefulness, because they know, look, people who are listening to the Mainframe, they want to learn, about marketing automation and the specific things that Tony and Chris are talking about. But they do a good job of kind of weaving in kind of pop culture and nerd references that are, also entertaining. But that also helps them create that authentic connection with their audience because that's the kind of stuff that Chris and Tony are interested in. They're Star Wars guys and comic book guys. And, like I'm a sports guy. That's their thing. And they know that a lot of the audience is going to connect with them on that stuff. So not only are they being useful, but that, revealing that little part of themselves also at the same time helps them develop this authentic connection. And so as we go through this series of 4 episodes, we'll kind of start, stacking these bricks one on top of the other. So, the Mainframe is a great show to check out just for what you'll learn, but also as an example of this combination of authenticity and usefulness that we've been talking about on these last 2 episodes. Well, this has been fun, Mr. Farnworth. 2 out of 4 are done. We'll come back next week and we will talk about sustainability, which is a very controversial essential element, actually. Some people think that it's so simple that we could do an episode about it in like 10 seconds just by saying show up. But I think you and I both know that there's a lot more there, a lot of meat on that bone. And so we will chew on that meat next week.
Okay, so let me end with this, and this will be your cold opening, but also feel free to cut it out if it's inappropriate. Right? What a setup.
Yeah.
So Andy Sprinkler has a brother. His name is Andrew Bullock. And do you know what a bullock is?
No.
It's a castrated bull. All right, castrated bull. So like, he's no longer like, his maleness is all right.
Yeah, I know what castrated is.
Okay. So his name's Andrew Bullock. So Andy Sprinkler's brother is Andrew Bullock. Andrew Bullock is a vasectomy doctor here in St. Louis. No lie. Don't ask me how I know this.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
That's why I was like, cool, Andy Sprinkler. Maybe in the irrigation business, of course. So maybe we should go now. All right,
cold open, Toby. There it is. All right, we'll talk to y'all next week on another brand new episode of The Lead.